Hey, what's up guys? John here. Looks like everyone is starting to come around to the idea that this market's coming down. It's coming down in a very big way. I mean, all of you guys know this on this channel, but I'm talking about the general public. The general public is looking at things like, oh, everything's okay, everything's going to be good. But I'm just looking at like the core fundamentals of what's actually happening. The stock market, this pullback that we're seeing is like nothing to me. I'm not looking at this saying that this is a crash, even though some stocks are down 50 or 75%. To me, a crash is something to where we pull back maybe 40% from where we are now, like a 40% pull down on the Dow from where we are now. That to me is a crash. That's a real crash. This is nothing. But where we're headed is something. This is serious. Where we're headed is very, very concerning. Where we're headed is a place of true fear. And I'm saying that because we're looking at these inflation numbers are absolutely insane. The leverage and debt that Americans are holding right now is insane. It's crazy to me. But I've been talking about this for so long that we're getting ready to see this rug pull that we've been set up on. And I've been saying this on Instagram, for example, almost 2 years. I've been saying, hey, some of this stuff doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm just curious, when in history have they ever forgiven student loans, rent payments, mortgage payments, utility bills? When have they forgiven all these things and given us free money? When has that ever happened? Never, right? Well, what is society going to look like after this? Where are we headed next? And what happens when they go pull everything back, when you have to pay back all this debt, when you have to pay back all this expense? What is this all going to look like? People just said, oh, that's crazy, it's not going to happen. But here we are. Now, what I think is actually going to happen is that the payback with some of these simply won't happen. Like some of the utility bills, some people aren't going to be able to pay back their mortgages, some people aren't going to be able to pay back. And that's going to be one thing. But I think ultimately what we're being prepared for is a society with these universal basic income, stipend, gas stipend, stimulus, all of these different payout programs. That is going to happen. And in this world, there's nothing for free. And soon a lot of people are going to find out. But I'm looking at some of this. It's pretty fascinating to me. Dow Jones tumbles as market correction extends losses while Apple is an absolute loser. Legendary investor Jeremy Grantham says we're in the fifth great bubble of the modern era and warns the economy won't skate through a housing crisis. Wall Street titan Jeremy Grantham has been warning of a super bubble in the U.S. since last year, arguing that the S&P 500 is set to be cut in half as an era marked by exceedingly risky investor behavior begins to fade. Now the co-founder and chief investment strategist of the Boston-based asset management firm Grantham, Mayo, and Van Ottenloo is warning the U.S. may be headed towards a housing crisis as mortgage rates soar, as the effects of the economy could be devastating. So they're going to be releasing inflation numbers on the 11th, and we're set for mortgage hikes or for rate hikes in June. So 30 days from now. So far, predictions about the S&P 500 have proved to be precedent, if a little dramatic, as the index is now down roughly 15% year to date. Stocks, particularly in the one's flying high sector, have been hammered as the Fed continues to raise interest rates in hopes of combating levels of inflation not seen in 4 decades. Grantham argues the U.S. economy can weather dramatic drops in the stock market as evidence of a merely mild recession that started tech stock blowups during the dot-com bubble. But when it comes to housing crisis, he said the economy is unlikely to come through unscathed. Now, what Robert Kiyosaki is saying is Robert Kiyosaki says the hot inflation will wipe out 50% of the U.S. population. Now, many people, either love Robert or think he sells fear, but the reality is that he's a smart guy. He's made a lot of money. He's made a lot of really smart bets in his lifetime, and he, I think, looks at true fundamentals. I think that he's not just saying what people want to hear. He's looking at the real numbers, looking at real data, and making his forecast, his opinions based on that. I don't think he's just putting things out because he wants to just scare people. Biden, what he's planning right now is Biden administration announces plan to increase high access to affordable high-speed internet. The Biden administration has announced a plan to expand access to affordable high-speed internet for millions of Americans. The plan is part of an affordable connectivity program. You have to, how they tie this whole thing into me it's unbelievable. 20 internet service providers have increased to either low cost or increase speeds to provide eligible households with access to broadband internet with speeds of at least 100 megabits per second at a cost of no more than $30 per month. The administration said in a statement released Monday morning, the 20 ISPs, which include AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, cover roughly 80% of the population, according to the administration. In a Sunday briefing with reporters, administration officials said Latino Americans are 15% less likely to have high-speed internet than their white peers. White-black families, while black families are 9% less likely. In addition, roughly 35% of people living in tribal lands lack access to affordable broadband services. The administration estimates that 48 million households qualify for ACP, which accounts for about 40% of the households in the U.S. qualifying. Households either earn below 200% of the federal poverty level or have a member who receives other government benefits such as SNAP, Medicare, or supplement Social Security income, right? So this is where we're headed. This is 100% where we're headed. I would bet almost anything on this, is that we are going to see in the next 6 months to a year more and more of these subsidies, whether it be internet, whether it be gas stipends, whether it be stimulus. All of these different things are going to continue to get rolled out to, save the American people, as they'd say, right? This is what's going to happen. People are going to get completely decimated in the stock market, I believe. I think even, cryptos, I think everything is going to get greatly hit, because what happens when we've never seen real inflation in this country? We've seen, 20%, 30%. In my opinion, real inflation is like hyperinflation. Think Venezuela, like real inflation. It happens. Look at the Weimar Republic. What happens when you print so much money and you build out this dependent society? You build out a lazy society. When you have a lazy society, nobody wants to work. When no one wants to work, they want to stay home and get things for free. When that happens, the economy doesn't function. And then what happens? Everything just falls. Everything's falling. And that's where we are right now, is we're at this stage where we're in a denial stage. We're in complete denial as a society of where we are actually headed. We're not producing. This is what is crazy to me, is like America used to be a country that would produce. We would produce things. This is what made us great, is our production. Now we don't produce oil. We don't produce really anything. We import everything, and we export very little. And from that, what are we doing? We're also building out enemies over, look at all the allies that are being built overseas now due to our actions over the last 6 months. We're building out these great allies, these great connections. Not that we're benefiting, but Russia, China, India, Saudi Arabia, these allies, we're building out those allies to be strong together. And they hold, over half of the global population. They produce more items than any other country. They produce so much. They have the oil, they have the power, they have the control, and America is losing it all. This is like the crazy reality. And people are like, oh no, that's fear mongering. It's like, tell me something that is incorrect in that statement. This is what's happening in America. They are to me, it seems like either intentionally or not, like it seems like we're stepping into a really painful economy. And I think that we're going to start to see more and more supply chain issues coming very soon. And with these supply chain issues, it's just going to get harder for small business that they don't control their own shipping and distribution. But all this stuff is going to be tied into this sky-high stock market that's going to get pulled down. Because if you're paying, let's say, $500 or $800 a week to go to the grocery store, right? And you're making $50,000 a year, so you're making about $4,000 a month, and you're spending $2,000 of it just in food, and you have an apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, which is $1,500. It means you have $500 for a cell phone bill, $500. You have cell phone bill, car insurance, clothing, everything you need, health insurance, everything, gas. It's not going to work, right? This is where society is right now. That doesn't factor in for any credit card debt, doesn't factor in for any student loans, doesn't factor in for utilities for your apartment, doesn't factor in for any of that. This is where we are. We're stepping into this affordability crisis, And it seems like the general public is completely asleep at the wheel, not realizing where we're actually headed. That's why I do think, the investments like gold and silver and things where you can actually take custodial ownership of, it's going to be important, I believe. I think anything that you can buy that you're going to take custodial ownership of is going to be a very, smart investment. Because that's what you want. You want true ownership. When you don't have true ownership, you have, stocks, you have traditional investments that are held within, commercial banks. Everything is then tied into, the overall financial system. But when you own things and you have full custodial ownership, there brings about a certain level of security with that, because you yourself have full access. You're the one that has full control. You know where things are. You know where, where your options are. If you had to let's say trade in silver, trade in gold, or trade things in, you could do it, and always, you could do it any country in the world and trade it in for local currencies or trade in for barter. It sounds so crazy to me, like where you'd actually have a conversation about bartering. But I feel like in a year, 2 years, bartering could very well likely be normal, where people are bartering, or maybe even less than that, to be honest, maybe 6 months. Like the rate in which we are, moving right now, it's so hard to put a timeline on it, because looking at things when you're like, okay, this will happen in a year or 2 years maybe if we continue at this rate, but then out of nowhere, X, Y, and Z happens, and it picks up to where, it's very hard to pinpoint a date. But it's going to be in the future. There's no doubt about it. We are going to be stepping into a society where people are going to be very, pushed against the corner. They're going to be very, very hard pressed to find a viable solution. And I think that's what we're going to start seeing. More bartering. We're going to start to see crazy things happen when food prices skyrocket and the stock market gets dragged down. What do you think? I'm curious. Drop your comments below. Hit the like button. Subscribe here. Also sub on my second channel. It's going to be a podcast. Also on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram. Everything's in the banner. Catch you guys later.